It began in Marion,
one last
Maine,
radio call,
a snow-capped,
pine-wrapped town
no
near the coast.
struggle,
The kind of
signs
place
of
where
escape.
people left their front
Just
doors
silence.
unlocked. For
And knew
18
everyone
years,
at Sunday service.
her disappearance
That
haunted
winter
the
of
town
1996
until hikers
would
stumbled on a
change
sealed
everything.
drain pipe beneath
Leona
an
Vance was
abandoned
just
prison.
8.
What
No
they
one
found
across
inside
town for her
changed the
pitch-perfect
entire
soprano
story.
voice.
This isn't
Her
just
music
about a
teacher
missing
said she could
detective.
bend
It's
heaven's
about
ear.
corruption, survival,
That Christmas
and a
Eve,
truth buried
she
deeper
sang
than
the
anyone
solo at
imagined.
St. Clement's Church.
So settle in,
annual candlelit
because what
recital.
you're about to hear will
She
stay
stood
with
at
you
the
long
altar in
after
a
it
white
ends.
velvet dress. Stop sign
Ribbon
before we
hair
dive
glowing
in.
under stained glass.
Hit that like
and
button,
sang,
subscribe, and
"Oh,
comment
holy
below.
night." What would you have done
Her
if you
parents,
uncovered this truth
Stella and
after
Graham
18
Vance,
years?
We're in the
Your
front
thoughts
row.
matter here.
Stella, let's get
a
into
fourth
it.
grade teacher.
She made
Graham,
one last radio
the town's
call
best
at
car
12:43 a.m.
And in the back,
calm,
watching
routine,
with tearful pride,
and
was
then
Uncle
nothing.
Darren,
No response.
Graham's older brother,
No backup
a quiet
request.
bachelor who lived
Just
by
a
the lake.
static silence
After the
that
recital,
haunted an entire
chaos
town.
broke.
18
Quietly.
years later,
The church
a rusted
emptied.
drain pipe beneath
Stella
the
looked for
ruins of a
Leona.
decommissioned prison.
She wasn't
once
with her
forgotten.
classmates.
Cracked,
She
open
wasn't
a
in the
case
coat
buried
room.
in shadows.
She wasn't anywhere.
And what they found
The
inside
search began immediately.
changed everything.
Police set up a
The
perimeter.
rain had started
Dogs
just before
combed the
midnight.
woods.
Not a storm.
Neighbors lit
but the
candles
kind of
and
light,
prayed.
persistent
But
drizzle
nothing.
that painted every
Detective
surface
Carmen
in silver
Lewis led the
dulled the
investigation.
world into a hush.
Local media,
Noah and
descended
Hollow,
on the small
Oregon,
town,
was already
even
a
a
quiet
national
town,
outlet ran a
tucked
segment
between
on the
cedar-blanketed
vanishing
hills
angel from
and stitched
Marion
together by
by
just
New
2
Year's
main
Day.
roads.
Hope
It
dimmed.
wasn't the kind of place
The
that
Vance
made
family
national
began to
headlines.
unravel.
It
Stella
wasn't even the
quit
kind of
teaching.
place that
She
made
rarely
state
left the
headlines.
house.
But on
Some
October
days,
17th,
she sat for
2003,
hours in Leona's
something
untouched
happened that
room,
would ripple through
listened to
every
cassette
corner
recordings
of
of her
soil.
daughter's voice.
Detective Helena
Graham,
Voss,
on the
34,
other hand,
a
became
single mother
consumed.
won.
He
and a
tore apart
respected
their
officer
backyard in the Noah and
searching
Hollow
for
Police
clues.
Department, built a
Stepped
map
out of
in
the
dimly
garage
lit
of every
station
lead
into the wet chill
and began
of early
drinking.
fall.
Darren
Her partner
Vance
that
stepped
night,
up publicly.
Officer Mika
He
Tanaka,
organized prayer nights
barely
at his
24,
cottage.
trailed
Spoke
behind
softly
her,
at vigils,
holding two
He said,
steaming cups of
Leona's
coffee
spirit
and a
is
clipboard
still near,
already wet at the
but
corners.
privately,
Dispatch
some
log
neighbors
to
whispered.
911 hang
Something
up in the
about
Renslow
Darren's
house
over
on Briar
involvement
Lane,
felt performative.
Mika said.
A year
Handing
passed.
her the cup.
Then
Could be
2.
nothing.
Then 3.
Helena nodded.
The police had
brushing
nothing.
strands of dark
That's
hair
when
behind
Stella
her
hired
ear
Edlin
as she
March,
scanned the quiet
a former
street
cop
ahead.
turned private
We check
investigator.
anyway. He was
The
grizzled,
cruiser pulled
mid-50s,
away into the fog,
and haunted by an
that would be the
unsolved
last
child
time
case
anyone
from
saw
years
them
before.
alive.
Edlin
In
took the job
2021,
quietly.
The
He
ruins
began
of
where
Wolf
police
Bay's correctional
left off.
facility loomed like a monument to everything the state wanted to forget. The maximum security prison had shut down abruptly in 1999 after budget cuts and internal corruption scandals gutted its staff and reputation. By now, it had been swallowed by the forest. Trees split through broken windows. Moss clawed its way up crumbling stone. And somewhere deep in its bones, something waited. 2 amateur explorers, Gareth Mullins, 31, and Caleb Reedon, 28, had come searching for urban decay photos and maybe a little thrill. Instead, they found the drainage tunnel beneath the solitary wing, rusted over, sealed shut, but something about it seemed wrong. Caleb pointed her flashlight into the thick darkness. What is that? The glint of something buried deep. A buckle? A metal badge? Maybe bones? They didn't go in. They called the police. When the call came in, Detective Oshingwin was 3 hours into reviewing missing persons files from the early 2000s. Her job was cold cases. What they didn't tell you when you joined that unit was that most files went cold for a reason. There was nothing left. But something about the dispatch report made her sit up straight. Human remains found in abandoned prison drain. Evidence suggests body is decades old. Possible law enforcement badge visible. She called her assistant, Jared Falk, a sharp but awkward civilian analyst who knew every unsolved case in the county better than most detectives knew their own lunch orders. "Jared," she said, "pull the Voss file." "You think it's her?" "I want to know where Helena Voss was last seen. Right now." Forensics moved fast. The recovery took 2 days. Beneath layers of rot, sludge, and waterlogged trash, they pulled the skeletal remains of a woman still partially clothed in faded police attire. Clutched to her chest, a rusted Norwin Hollow PD badge. The number etched into the back matched the department's registry. Badge 1172, Detective Helena Voss. Jared stared at the data sheet with wide eyes. They found her. Asha leaned against the cold cinder block wall of the lab. And her partner? No sign of Mika Tanaka. Asha's mind turned over possibilities. 2 went out. 1 came back. In a drainpipe. Who decided where she ended up? The original investigation had been clumsy. Rushed. The patrol car was found parked on the side of Pine Creek Road. Doors locked, lights off. Radio static was the only sound. No sign of struggle. No prints, no blood. For years, rumors circled. That Voss had run away. That Mika had been in over her head. That both women had fallen into the hands of someone who knew how to erase. But now, the case had new oxygen, with a body confirmed and a crime scene unearthed. Asha had the one thing every cold case needed, a crack. Jared returned from the archives with a rolled blueprint tube nearly as long as his arm. "You need to see this." The prison blueprints were faded, but one section stood out, Sector 6C, the solitary wing. "Look at this pipe," Jared pointed. It was meant to drain into the marshlands past a ridge. But in '97, an internal inspection marked it as hazardous and sealed it. The files logged 2 years before closure. Asha squinted. "Who sealed it?" Jared flipped the page. Signed off by the then head of security, Walter Braille. She recognized the name. Braille had retired in 2003, just 3 months before Helena and Mika disappeared. "I want to talk to him," she said. Walter Braille lived in a gated community outside Eugene. His house was neat, his handshake firm, and his eyes wary. "You're here about Wolfsbane," he said before Asha even introduced herself. "I'm here about Detective Helena Voss," she replied, "and the pipe you sealed." Braille exhaled. "I told them we had a problem. Strange trucks showing up at odd hours. Unregistered night staff. The warden said to mind my business." "Were inmates being moved through that drain?" she asked. Braille didn't answer. "Because someone was—" He looked up, eyes bloodshot. "I think you're about to uncover something bigger than you expect, detective, and you might not like who's involved." The files from Wolfsbane's final year were mostly destroyed in an electrical fire 2 weeks after its closure. But Jared, persistent as ever, had found an archive backup at a private insurance firm. In a Yellowwing employee roster, Asha found 2 names of note. Officer Mika Tanaka, Night Patrol. Maintenance Tech, Raul Aguilar, transferring from El Paso County Corrections in 2002. No forwarding address. The same Aguilar was listed in a 2003 internal misconduct complaint involving multiple inmates and an unnamed female civilian. Asha's fingers curled tightly around the page. It wasn't just police corruption. It was trafficking. The island didn't show up on most modern maps. Kampong Lang, off the coast of Malaysia, wasn't even a name used by locals anymore. Most just called it the island with no lights. But to Interpol Task Force 612, the island was known by another name, Waypoint Theta, a halfway point for trafficking operations stretching from Eastern Europe to the Pacific Rim. Intelligence indicated young women were held, broken, then moved to brothels in mainland cities. Some never made it that far. It was a young Filipino woman, rescued during a sting in Johor Bahru, who uttered a name that sent tremors through the agency. I met one American there. She had a tattoo, very old. She said her name used to be Mika. Detective Oshin Gwyn sat across from the young survivor, her translator soft-spoken beside her. The girl's eyes were hollow, but she clutched something, A torn page from a diary, written in a trembling hand. English letters spelled out 5 words. Please tell them I'm alive. On the back, a drawing, small ink faded, but unmistakable. A monarch butterfly on a broken chain. Asha's heart stopped. Mika Tanaka had a butterfly tattoo placed behind her left shoulder the day she graduated the academy. A gift to herself, freedom and purpose. That symbol had traveled thousands of miles. That meant Mika might still be alive. The operation was code-named Rainglass, a joint effort between Interpol, Malaysian federal authorities, and American law enforcement. Asha flew in under diplomatic clearance, accompanied by Special Agent Noam Becker, a trafficking specialist with the U.S. State Department. They approached Kampong Lang via stealth boat, hugging the dark waters of the strait. The island was barely a mile wide, dense with vegetation. At its center stood a squat concrete building, the remnant of an old fisheries warehouse, now repurposed with steel gates, solar panels, and roaming guards. Satellite heat signatures confirm at least 28 persons inside, 6 armed, Becker whispered, peering through binoculars. And if one of them is Mika? Asha asked. Becker didn't answer. He didn't need to. They moved in fast. Federal tactical units stormed the gates, rifles raised, shouts of Malay and English blending with screams. Smoke grenades filled the halls. In the chaos, Asha pushed forward, stepping over broken crates and drug paraphernalia. Inside a locked room, barely large enough for 2 beds, they found 5 women. One of them turned, flinching at the light. Her hair was gray at the roots, face hollow, eyes downcast. But when Asha called softly, "Mika," the woman stopped. "Who are you?" The voice rasped, more whispered than speech. "Mika Tanaka from Norwin Hollow, Oregon?" The woman's lip trembled. She stepped into the light, and Asha saw it, the faded butterfly tattoo, half hidden beneath her torn sleeve. Mika couldn't speak for the first hour. Medical responders checked her vitals. They found signs of malnourishment, past fractures, and long-term drug exposure. Though she was clean now, her pulse spiked only once. When they handed her a mirror, she turned away. It wasn't until they gave her clean clothes, food, and a private room aboard the evacuation ship that she said her first full sentence. Is she alive?" Asha met her eyes. "We found her in the old Wolfsbane drainpipe." Mika's entire body seemed to fold in on itself. "She died trying to protect me." In her debriefing, Mika recounted the last 18 years in fragments. But the night of the disappearance, she remembered clearly. Helena had suspected something was wrong with Wolfsbane Correctional. Reports of unmarked vehicles at night. Inmates disappearing from medical logs. The call to Briar Lane was just an excuse. They'd planned to check the prison perimeter off record, but they never made it. "Someone was waiting for us," Mika whispered. Men in guard uniforms. But they weren't ours. Helena pulled her weapon. The men pulled clubs. I saw her get hit. She yelled for me to run. I did. Mika never saw Helena again. Before Asha left Malaysia, Mika gave her one more thing, a list of names. 5 Americans she'd overheard or interacted with, men who had crossed into Kampong Lang to manage, observe, or select women. One name made Asha go still. Braille, Walter Braille, the man who sealed the drainpipe, the man who warned her that something darker was hidden. He wasn't protecting the truth. He was burying his guilt, and now she had a reason to bring him in. It was dawn in Eugene when Asha and 2 federal marshals knocked on Braille's door. He answered, freshly shaven, coffee in hand. "Detective Nguyen, you're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and facilitating human trafficking across international borders." Braille went pale. His coffee mug shattered on the porch. He began a one last radio call. A snow-capped Mika Tanaka, no struggle. Asha
kind
no
of
signs
place
and
where
she
people left their
remembers
front
doors
doors
unlocked. Braille was let away
everyone
at
at
Sunday service.
Her disappearance
that
haunted
winter
the
of
town.
1990.
For the first time,
hikers stumbled on a
decades,
sealed drain
Norwin
pipe.
Hollow
Leona
was
Vance
abandoned
was just
prison.
8. Mika's
When
they
Nona
found
crossed
inside
landed
under
under
quiet
quiet
tire soprano
story.
voice.
News
This
crews
isn't
were
just
music
about a
teachers
missing
said she could-
detective. There was no
Ben
press
had
release
about
here
corruption
at the
survival.
terminal. That Christmas,
Her
Eve,
mother stood in a
buried.
long
She sang
brown
solo
at
at
St.
St.
Clement's
Clement's
Church.
So
Already
settle
fallen
in
before
annual
Mika
because
Tanaka
what you're about to
They
hear
didn't
will
speak.
stay
Stood
with
the
you long.
altar
They
in
just
a white
hugged
velvet dress.
in the
Stop
arms of
sign
the
ribbon-haired
ribbon-haired
glowing
glowing
under
under
searching
glass.
Hit that like
Mika's
silence
cracked.
in
Oh,
comment below.
holy
Her
night.
shoulders shook.
What would you have done
Her
if you
parents
heard of
covered
nightmares?
nightmares?
Stella and Graham
Screams and
Van
invisible
Years.
chains
We're in the
loose. Your
front row.
thoughts
She
matter.
was home.
Stella,
Let's
but
get
she
into
wasn't
grade
free.
teacher. She
Not
made
yet.
one last radio
week
town
later,
best
at
call. A
12:43
memorial was held at
and in the
Norwin
back,
Hall's old
watching
chapel.
with
Team.
tearful pride.
And then
Uncle
nothing
Darren
was placed beside
no
an empty
Ram's
plot.
older brother.
No
from 2000
quiet
quiet
bachelor who
it
lives
read
by the lake.
static
Detective
silence
Helena
after
Voss,
an entire
1969,
18 years
2003,
later, church
a rusted
empty, vanished
drainpipe.
into
Stella
silence
Lewin's
for Leona,
decommissioned
but never
prison.
left
She
our
wasn't
hearts.
forgotten.
Classmates.
Mika
Cracked
she
open
wasn't
the
in
case,
coat
buried in
shadow.
shadows.
She wasn't anywhere.
And what they
Voice
found in the
shook
side
search began immediately.
Helena didn't
Every
run.
police set up a
She
perimeter. Rain had
disappear.
started
Dogs
just before
she gave
the
everything to
woods.
protect
Not
me.
a storm.
Neighbors
And I
lit
lived the
candles
kind of
and
light
prayed.
behind
Persistent
nothing.
drizzle that
Officers
painted every
Detective
part
Carmen
silver
Silver
led the investigation
Helena
to
was
a hunt.
finally
Local
given
media
Norwin
descended
Hollow,
on a small
Oregon,
town.
and
Was
Mika
already
finally
as
national
quiet as
outlet ran a
but
sub
as
between
between
cedar
vanishing
blanketed
angel
hills.
Detective
From
Oshin
together
Gwynn
by
stood
New
in the
Year's
Main
Day.
Road, Oregon State
Hope
Bureau
it wasn't the kind of
investigation.
place
The
that
Vance
made
maps and
vanishing
mugshots
unravel.
lining the walls.
It wasn't even
Helena
Helena
Voss's
Voss's
case
that
that
cracked
rarely
open
left the
just a
house.
cold fire.
But on
October
Someday,
17th,
it unveiled a
decades
decades
hours
of
of
complicity.
something
Untouched
happened
and
now.
Ripple through
Listen
every
to the
corner
recordings
of
of
made her
daughter's
skin
voice.
crawl.
Detective Helena
Mayor
Voss,
Gerald
on the
34,
other hand,
formerly
a single
police
mother
chief
won.
of Norwin
He
Hollow,
tore apart their
he had
backyard
supervised
in
the
the
Norwin
park
searching
Hollow
for
year
Helena
and
built a
Mika
stepped out of the
garage
dimly lit
now
station into the
he was
wet
running for
chill
stand
of
drinking.
a law
Darren
partner
Vance
that
stepped
night
up
platform.
publicly. Officer Mika
Oshin
organized prayer
timeline
night
barely
and
decided his
24.
name.
Trail
2003
vigils,
holding
Voss
two
disappeared.
steaming cups of
Leona's
coffee
spirit
and a
is
clipboard
still
already
retired,
wet at the
but
corner.
privately,
2005
dispatch law
opens
denied
private security.
something about Darren's
over
involvement
Lane.
felt performative.
2007,
A year and a half.
2015.
Then
multiple
nothing.
federal contracts.
Then
Helena
border
nodded.
surveillance.
The police had
Brushing
all
strands
funded by
of
back.
dark
That's when
areas
Stella
behind
hired
his ears,
Ed
and she
Lamar.
scanned
He wasn't
the
just a
quiet
former
streets
cop
ahead.
turned
He built a
private
check
investigator.
anyway.
The first threat came as pulled away into
Osh
and haunted by an
that would be the
unsolved
last
time
time
anyone
anyone
saw them alive.
Now step back.
Edlin
In
2021.
quietly.
The
She
ruins
began
of
with
Warface
correctional
correctional
facility.
Then came the
Loomed
break
like a monument
Her
to
car
everything
tires
the state
slashed.
wanted to forget.
Nothing stolen.
The maximum
just
security
disturbed.
prison had shut
warning.
down abruptly.
Mika
in
was moved to a
1999
safe house outside
after
of
budget
town.
cuts.
Federal
Internal
marshals
corruption
took over
scandals
security.
gutted its staff and
Still,
reputation.
Asha didn't back
By
down.
now,
She
it had been
contacted
swallowed by
Attorney
the
General
forest.
Blake Harmon.
Trees split
Someone
through
with
broken
reputation for
windows.
integrity.
Moss
and a grudge
clawed
against
its way up
Corbin's
crumbling stone.
Old Boys Club.
And somewhere deep in its
bring me
bones,
something solid.
something
Harmon
weighted
said over the phone.
Two amateur
and I'll
explorers,
burn him down
Garrett
myself.
Mullins, 31,
Asha
and
smiled
Caleb
grimly.
Reedon, 28.
She intended
had
to
come
do
searching
exactly
for Urban
that.
Decay photos.
Corbin had kept
and
clean.
maybe a little thrill.
No digital
Instead,
fingerprints.
They found the
No
drainage
direct
tunnel
transfers.
beneath the solitary
But
wing.
one man knew where the
Rusted
bodies were
over.
buried, sealed shut,
Figuratively, and in
but
some
something
cases,
about it
literally
seemed wrong.
Troy Kessler,
Caleb
former
pointed her
accountant for
flashlight
Corbin Security
into the
Firm,
thick
darkness,
had been living off the grid
What
since
is that?
2016.
The
after
glint of something
suspected
buried
embezzlement
deep.
scandal.
A buckle,
Asha found
metal
in a fishing
badge,
cabin 2
maybe
hours
bones.
upstate. His
They
beard
didn't
was
go in.
unkempt.
They called
Hands
the police.
shaking from years
When
of
the
looking
call
over his
came
shoulder.
in,
When she
Detective
mentioned the name
Oshin
Mika
Gwynn was
Tanaka,
3 hours into
he
reviewing
broke. Missing
She was
persons
one of the
files
early
from the
ones.
early 2000s.
They called her the cop
Her job
princess.
was cold cases.
Told everyone
What they
she
didn't
went
tell
rogue.
you when you joined
I
that
knew it
unit
wasn't true.
was that most files
Kessler
went
handed
cold
over
for
2
reasons.
ledgers. There was
Paper
nothing
ones.
left.
Hidden in
But
both
something about
oil
the
drums.
dispatch report
Records from
made her sit up
2002
straight. date to 2006. Human remains found in abandoned
Names,
prison drains.
Locations,
Evidence suggests
wire
bodies
transfers,
decades
blood
old.
money.
One
Possible
entry,
law enforcement
dated
badge
October
visible.
19th, She called her
2003,
assistant,
Jared Falk,
silent security,
a sharp but awkward
drained
civilian
seal,
analyst
Voss
who
terminated.
knew every unsolved
Signed
case in the
WB.
county better
Approved,
than most
she
detectives
see.
knew
The
their
files
own
were
lunch
explosive.
Jared,
Attorney General
she
Harmon
said,
pulled the
swiftly.
Voss file.
Corbin's
You
congressional
think it's her?
campaign was
I
suspended
want to know where
within
Helena
24
Voss
hours
was last seen.
at a press conference
now.
watched by millions.
Forensics
Harmon
moved
laid out the
fast.
charges.
The recovery
We have
took
reason
2
to believe
days.
former Chief Gerald
Beneath
Corbin
layers of rot,
oversaw a
sludge, and
clandestine
waterlogged
trafficking
trash.
pipeline.
They
Between
pulled the
Wolfsbane
skeletal
Correctional
remains of a
Facility
woman still
and
partially
offshore
clothed
transit
in
points.
faded police attire.
These operations
Clutched
involved
her
law
chest,
enforcement officials,
arrested Norwin
falsified
Hollow
reports,
PD badge,
and the death of
the
Detective
number
Helena
etched into the
Voss.
back matched
Camera
the
shutters
department's
clicked
registry.
furiously.
Badge
Corbin's face
1172,
flashed on every
Detective
screen.
Helena Voss.
But Asha wasn't
Jared
watching
stared
press.
at the data sheet.
She was
wide
with Mika.
eyes.
They were
They
watching
found
something
her.
else, the live arrest. The trial lasted 11 weeks. Mika testified via video behind privacy glass. Her words were steady. Her gaze never flinched. He said we were disposable. He called Helena collateral. I watched her die protecting me. I won't let that go silent again. Her testimony was echoed by other survivors. Girls rescued during Operation Rainglass. Women whose lives had been rewritten. Asha testified too. So did Jared Falk, who became something of a local hero for piecing the case together. In the end, Gerald Corbin was sentenced to life without parole. 3 other officials were indicted. 2 others disappeared before they could be arrested. Justice, though delayed, had arrived. While clearing out Helena's old apartment, now used for storage by the police department, a small black notebook was discovered hidden behind a false drawer. Inside, case notes, and one torn letter addressed only as, "To whoever finds this after I'm gone." It read, "I don't know what's coming, but I can feel in my gut there's something foul inside Wolfsbane. I won't stop digging. If this ends badly for me, promise me someone will tell the truth. Not just for me. For every girl they smuggled. For Mika. She's good. She believes in the badge. Find her if I don't make it out. Helena Voss." Mika read that letter 10 times in silence. Then she folded it and placed it in her journal. 2 months after the trial, Malaysian officials raided Kampong Lang one final time. This time, they didn't stop at rescue. They demolished it. Concrete crumbled. Gates bent. Every room where a woman had suffered was reduced to ash and debris. Asha received the video on a secure drive. She watched the building collapse and felt the final knot in her chest loosen. The place where Helena died was gone, but her legacy would remain forever. 2027. Mika Tanaka now works as an advocate for trafficking survivors. She's spoken at the UN, partnered with NGOs, and helped draft policy reform bills across 3 states. She never rejoined law enforcement, but she mentors new cadets at the Norwin Hollow Academy. One afternoon, a young recruit named Kelsey Reed asked her, "Do you ever regret joining the force back then?" Mika smiled. "No. I regret what they did to us. But I don't regret who I was or who Helena was." On her shoulder, just barely visible beneath her blouse, the butterfly tattoo remains. Faded but unbroken. Some stories are buried deep. Some are locked behind silence, time, and fear. But even in darkness, truth finds a way to breathe. Helena Voss was silenced. But in doing so, she ignited something no one could put out. Not traffickers, not politicians, not time, because hope doesn't die. It waits, and sometimes it waits just long enough to be found. While the dust from the trial settled, a name appeared in a tip to Asha's department inbox. Look into Tori Ellison. She tried to blow the whistle. In 2005, they buried her.
Asha typed the name into the archives. Tori Ellison, 29 at the time, was a regional crime reporter for the Oregon Sentinel. In early 2005, she'd submitted a story draft titled, "The Wolfsbane Cover-Up, Women Vanishing in the Pines." The article never ran. 3 weeks after she submitted her story, Tori was hospitalized following a suspicious car crash on Highway 52. Her brakes failed. The paper called it coincidence. She left journalism the same year. Now, she ran a small bookstore in Coos Bay. Asha got in the car. Tori was older now, early 50s. Hair gray-streaked, hands stained with newsprint and coffee. But her eyes, still sharp. "I knew," she said. "I knew something was off when I started connecting missing girls to transport logs from Wolfsbane. I traced money to private guards, low-level politicians. I submitted my draft, and the next week, my brakes failed coming downhill. No one investigated." She sipped her tea. "They told me if I valued my life, I'd shut up, so I did." Asha slid the trial folder across the table. "You were right, and now it's your story again." Tori cried quietly, then reached for her old reporter's notebook. Back in Norwin Hollow, a quiet house on Chapel Avenue became a haven, the Helena Voss Safe House, established with support from both the DOJ and private donors, serve as a rehabilitation center for female trafficking survivors from both sides of the border. Mika spent hours there, cooking, listening, sometimes just sitting on the porch with a new arrival who didn't yet know how to speak again. She met Jasmine Mendez, 22, who had spent 4 years in Kampong Lang. Jasmine never spoke of her past, but she painted constantly. One day, she handed Mika canvas. It showed a butterfly, its wings stitched shut, but flying anyway. They cried together for hours. The police department's archive was a maze. But Jared Falk found what Asha had asked for. In the original Helena Voss case file, buried under old Polaroids and rosters, was a footlocker, dented, locked. No one had opened it in 18 years. Asha pried it open with bolt cutters. Inside, an old audio recorder, a flash drive from 2003, a badge with the name Raul Aguilar. She plugged in the flash drive, video logs, secret footage Helena had recorded inside Wolfsbane. In one, she filmed unmarked trucks entering the prison at 3:04 a.m. In another, she whispered, "They're moving girls. I can't prove it yet, but I will." Asha whispered back, "You did." The audio recorder contained one final message. It was staticky, but clear. "If something happens to me, look in the infirmary wall, Sector C3. I put names there. Copies. They can't erase all of it." Asha's eyes widened. Wolfsbane had been closed for decades, but C3 hadn't been searched fully during demolition. She made the call. With federal approval, a forensic team returned to the partially collapsed Wolfsbane ruins. Inside the crumbling infirmary wing, they located the section marked C3. Behind a loose panel in the wall, a plastic bag, duct taped tight, wedged into concrete. Inside, a second roster of undocumented inmates, handwritten names with dollar amounts, 6 confidential memos from Chief Gerald Corbin, a VHS labeled, "For DOJ eyes only." The tape was rushed to the FBI field office. It showed a meeting, grainy surveillance. Corbin, Braille, and 2 unknown men discussing liquidating the problem before Voss went public. This was a smoking gun. Helena hadn't just died for truth. She died having captured it. The footage leaked. Within hours, 5 more arrests were made. One of the men, a former Oregon state senator, fled the country. Interpol issued a red notice. Protests erupted. Vigils were held. The Oregon governor announced an independent task force into cold case corruption. And for the first time since 2003, the truth about Wolfsbane was made public in a 12-part podcast titled The Drainpipe Tapes, produced by Tori Ellison and Asha's team. It hit 40 million downloads within the first month. People finally listened. Autumn, Norwin Hollow. Helena's grave sat beneath a row of cedars now. Mika visited often, bringing fresh lilies. But this time, she found something different. A small, real monarch butterfly resting on the headstone. She smiled, tears in her eyes. I got them, Helena. We got them all. She sat down cross-legged in the grass, fingers tracing the engraved words. She vanished into silence, but never left our hearts. Long before her name would be carved into a headstone, Detective Helena Voss had stood alone in the locker room, lacing her boots with practiced precision. It was 1998, her first week wearing the badge. The department was still full of good old boys, reluctant to take orders from a woman, especially one with sharp instincts and no patience for chauvinism. But Helena didn't flinch. She didn't bluff. She listened more than she spoke. And by the time 2001 rolled around, even the skeptics knew you didn't lie to Voss. You didn't underestimate her. And if she trusted you, it meant something. She saw that same fire in Mika Tanaka, a rookie fresh out of training with a curious mind and a stubborn streak. In their first patrol together, Mika had asked, "How do you deal with the darkness?" Helena had smiled and said, "You don't. You carry light, as much as you can, and you share it. Healing doesn't come in one breath. It arrives slowly, like dawn over blue skies." For Mika, the hardest part wasn't the nightmares or the flashbacks. It was talking, forming sentences after years of silence, letting herself be heard. She started in small ways. First, she taught self-defense classes at the Voss Safe House. Then she wrote anonymously for survivor blogs under the name Butterfly 47. But her biggest challenge came 6 months after the trial, when she was asked to speak at a human rights conference in Portland. A stage, a spotlight, and her voice. The morning of the speech, she almost didn't go. Then she opened Helena's notebook. The last page had a line scrawled in quick ink. "Speak, even if your voice shakes." So she did. Mika stood behind the podium, hands trembling. She looked out at the crowd, lawmakers, activists, survivors, and said, "My name is Mika Tanaka. I was a police officer. I was kidnapped, silenced, and used. But I survived. And I'm here to say, justice isn't just a verdict. It's a light. And sometimes it's the only thing keeping someone alive." She paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. Helena Voss died trying to protect me. She died chasing the truth. But she left me a gift. She taught me how to keep going. And now it's my turn to carry her light. The room erupted in applause. But Mika didn't smile until she saw Tori Ellison at the back of the room, recording. One more voice added to the chorus. Back at her office, Asha and Gwen reviewed the last case folder on her desk. Raul Aguilar, the man seen on Helena's surveillance tape. The man Mika remembered from the night Helena died. The same man who helped operate the compound on Kampong Lang. He disappeared after Wolfsbane closed in 1999. Interpol had a file. The DA had a file. No one had a recent sighting. Until now, an anonymous tip came in. He's alive. Goes by the name Ramos. Working with a private security firm in Honduras. Asha's blood went cold. Aguilar wasn't gone. He was still out there. The Department of Justice hesitated. Honduras wasn't under the same bilateral agreements. Extraction would be complicated, risky, But Asha didn't wait. With help from Agent Noam Becker and contact from Operation Rainglass, she traveled to San Pedro Sula, where a security compound operated under the name Centro Guardias del Sur. Their intel was clear. Aguilar was head of operations. She arrived undercover as an embassy liaison, and after 2 days of surveillance, they confirmed it. The man with the salt and pepper beard, the slight limp, the ever-present sunglasses. It was him. But he wasn't alone. He had private guards, armed ones, and he knew how to disappear. Asha had to act fast. They waited until the power grid failed. A rolling blackout gave them 5 minutes of darkness. Asha and 2 Interpol agents moved quickly through the back alley. Inside the compound, Aguilar was meeting with 2 foreign contractors. He never saw her coming. Raul Aguilar, Asha called out in Spanish, gun raised. Federal authority. On your knees. He froze, then smiled. You've come far for a dead man. Not dead enough. He tried to run, but this time he didn't make it. They tackled him beneath a buzzing security light, the same way he and his men had dragged Mika into the dark all those years ago. This time, he wouldn't walk away. Back on U.S. soil, Aguilar stood trial in federal court. Mika watched from the gallery, hand clenched in Tori Ellison's. Asha sat at the prosecution table. The evidence was overwhelming. Helena's surveillance tape, Mika's eyewitness ID, financial records from Wolfsbane, flight logs from Honduras. Aguilar smirked through most of it, until the court played Helena's whisper. If they find this, I'm probably gone. But I want them to know who did it. And her voice named him. Raul Aguilar, the man who killed her, who hunted Mika, who helped build the pipeline that swallowed lives. The jury deliberated just 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. That night, Mika sat by the window of the safe house, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Outside, the air was cold, but her chest was warm. Asha joined her quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. He's gone, Asha said. Mika nodded. I didn't think I'd live to see it. Asha looked up at the sky. Do you think she'd be proud of us? Mika didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, I think she can finally rest. And for the first time in 18 years, Mika slept through the night. No dreams, no screams, just peace. The town had changed. New houses, a community center. Even the diner on Main Street now had plant-based options. But some things hadn't changed. The Helena Voss Memorial Scholarship helped fund college for women entering law enforcement. The Mika Tanaka Center for Justice Recovery had expanded to 3 cities. And every fall on October 17th, the town held a vigil of the lanterns. Dozens of candles floated down Briar Creek in honor of those who never came home. Mika, now 54, stood quietly at the edge of the creek, holding her lantern. She no longer wore the badge, but she never stopped carrying the light. 3 months later, Mika passed away in her sleep from an unexpected heart complication. Peaceful, no pain, no warning. She left behind one sealed letter, marked only for Detective Oshingwin, to be opened upon my passing. Asha read it alone. In her office, it said, Asha, if you're reading this, I've finally joined Helena. I hope you don't mourn long. I had more years than I ever expected, and they were good. I want you to know something I never had the courage to say aloud. You saved me, not just from the past, but from becoming a ghost in the present. You gave me purpose again. So I'm leaving you with one last request. Tell my story. Tell hers. Make sure no woman, no girl, no survivor feels like their silence is a prison. And when you miss us, look up. The stars remember everything we forget. With love, Mika Tanaka. Asha folded the letter slowly.
Then she wept. 6 months later, Asha was asked to speak at the State Law Enforcement Academy. The class of 2034 was about to graduate. She walked to the podium, paused, and looked out at the young cadets, then said, "Let me tell you a story about a woman who vanished, and how her truth set a whole generation free. She wasn't a hero because she wore a badge. She was a hero because she never let go of the truth, even when it cost her everything." Behind her, a screen lit up with the name Helena Voss, 1969 to 2003, a detective, a fighter, a light, and just beneath it, a survivor, a voice, a flame that never went out. That night, Asha walked alone to Briar Creek. She lit 2 floating candles, one for Helena, one for Mika, and watched them drift down the current. The wind was soft. The air smelled of cedar. And in the quiet, Asha heard it, not in sound, but in memory. Helena's voice saying, "Carry the light. Share it." Asha whispered back, "I will," then turned toward home, her step steady, the darkness no longer something to fear, but something she knew how to walk through. She made one last radio call, then vanished into silence. But in that silence, a truth waited, buried deep beneath prison's lies and time, until someone brave enough, broken enough, stubborn enough, dug it back out. Helena Voss didn't disappear. She was taken, but in the end, she was found, not just in body, but in legacy. And every survivor she helped, even if she never met them, carries her forward. Because justice doesn't sleep, truth doesn't rot, and light, no matter how buried, always finds a way to shine again.